Ladies and gentlemen, I just started this new feed. Definitely be right back after the lunch. The trial has taken a break for lunch, and I started this new feed based on the camera pause, and so I had to start a new feed. Thank you for sticking with me, and like I said, click the like button, click the share button for the people who were interrupted by the pausing of the camera. Definitely don't want no interruptions. Information is way too important to be interrupted. So,
They said Tupac was untouchable, but behind the walls of Rikers Island, he was just a man, wounded, watching his back, and wondering who he could trust. He survived bullets, betrayal, and isolation behind bars. But what happened inside those walls has never been told until now. In the darkest corner of Rikers, he found betrayal and a brotherhood no one saw coming. These dudes smiled in my face, then flipped and tried to kill me, and I never saw it coming. They were Puff's security, Biggie's muscle, Henchman's people, and Tupac knew exactly who sent them. This is the side of Tupac Shakur the world never got to see, told by the man who lived it with him, not in the studio, but in a 6x9 cell. The rap battles, sex and drama with female guards, the tears, the silence after Jada Pinkett's visit, and the moment Tupac almost broke. Before Death Row, before All Eyes on Me, before Machiavelli, there was Rikers. Behind the Walls with Tupac Shakur, available now on Amazon. Get your copy. Learn the truth.
Like cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. Judge Miss Slavic, are you ready? AUSA, adjust the flag for the court. We're going to need to change PowerPoints. So they're basically trying to change the PowerPoint presentation, if you will. Ladies and gentlemen. We're ready to roll. The courtroom deputy, Miss Slavic, do you need batteries? A double A, comb still with chair pushed back, now legs crossed, hands crossed. Prosecutor Slavic, the house was just an example of the defendant's financial coercion of Jane, also drugs. They came as a necessary part of the situation. Also, as a brief note, ladies and gentlemen, the defense will not be cross-examining until, not cross-examining, giving their closing arguments until tomorrow, from what I understand. So that part, as all rise, juries and a judge, Miss Slavic, you may proceed. USA Slavic, let's go back. The 3 nights were part of the buildup from the fraud to coercion to finally force. Loud beeping. The prosecution, I apologize. The judge asked, do you need to change the batteries? Prosecution, Jane told you about Miami in 2024. He gave her liquid Molly. They show you video. They'll argue, right, that she was super into it, but she was super high. His coercion included threats to release tapes of her situations in the hotel rooms, if you will.
AUSA Slavic, Combs threatened to send tapes to Jane's child's father, 50 Cent. This was to coerce her into more commercial acts. The defense has suggested that Jane agreed to these hotel nights. Let's talk about what agreeing means. There's an incomplete picture. I don't think that the prosecution can actually speak to what Jane agreed to, other than what was actually talked about. And she gonna read from the text, that would be accurate. But if she's not gonna read from the text, then that would be inaccurate. So. A prosecution, Combs, like I said, we seeing they're trying to complete this picture, but we understand what we understand it to be based on the testimony that happened in real time, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, I understand that they're trying to present something to us in a they're trying to package up garbage and tell us that it's a new product. But it's simply not that. You know the funny part, the last statement, there is an incomplete picture. The deception by the prosecution as to the incomplete picture, or to even say that, is hilarious, because there was a lot of they were the ones who apologized for not reading all of the statements to the jury when the defense came back and was like, hold on, there's more to this. And then the prosecution basically said, well, we want to apologize to the court because we didn't want to seem like we would trying to be deceptive, when in fact they were. Yeah, Dickie Leonard, I agree with you, man. It does seem like something's a little off there, right? Don't know what it is. Not trying to diagnose it. Yeah, but I mean, just the way that she does what she does is like, yeah. Tisa not only tells, but she sells. You know what I mean? A lot of stories and angles and inconsistencies from the things that she says a lot of times. Like I said, my thing is, you take away the narrative from people like Tisa tells if you just do what I'm doing, right? If you will, right? AUSA Slavic. Let's turn to volume 2. We're going to talk about Cassie, with several examples, from sitting through this trial, that force was not limited to these days. Through the decade they were together, he forced her to be with escorts. Ladies and gentlemen, hit the like button, hit the share button. If you were over in the other chat, please let the people know that we had a slight bit of technical difficulty, and we are back, like I said, with the second half. So we just basically, it was kind of like right on, if you will, for the first half, and then we're back for the second half after lunch. So there'll be 2 feeds actually be to watch, if you will, which is even better. Though the prosecution's closing argument seems somewhat compelling, I respectfully disagree as to the mischaracterizations and exaggerations they're making in regards to what the actual testimony was. And sometimes they do refer to the testimony back. AUSA Slavic. Cassie was 19. He was in his late 30s. He signed her to a 10-album record deal. He took her on a yacht and gave her ecstasy. They made love. They were in a relationship. She had just turned 21. The defendant was her boss, who called all the shots. Simply not true. Once again, the 21-year-old versus the person who would then be in a relationship for a long term. I mean, if you're describing it that way, from that perspective. Hit the thumbs up button, ladies and gentlemen. Share the feed on your Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, whatever have you, ladies and gentlemen. Let the people know that we back. We're back. Money Mike in the building. Mo Better, Universal Axe, JoJo, Through Manga, Letitia, Coy Rudd, Aru, Wando McCrae, Poe the Great, Dickie Leonard, he said he gonna pray for Tisa Towns. I heard that, man. The prosecution, he molded her. He told Capricorn, "Let me show you." Then ordered Cassie around. She did it. Walk and turn around. Total compliance. Ladies and gentlemen, they're trying to characterize. See, once again, like I told you, the mischaracterizations, right? They're trying to now characterize somebody introducing somebody to somebody and showing them the potential that they might have. Like I said, Cassie was doing modeling. It was like, you tell somebody like, yo, walk and turn around from that perspective, right? That's what that means. That didn't mean like total compliance. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, the mischaracterization of what's going on here and what actually happened from that perspective, and they're talking about Capricorn Clark, her testimony in regards to that. Basically also saying he didn't and take no for an answer. He was abusive, physical, emotional, psychological, and through other means, if you will. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, the defense will be giving their closing arguments tomorrow. AUSA Slavic Prosecution, they want you to call this domestic violence, right? It's simply what it is. And see, notice, like I said, every time that the prosecution says something like this, they want you to call. No, it is what it is. They don't want you to call it anything. The fact that she didn't do anything about when they were having difficulties like that, that's what it was supposed to be dealt with, even with the 2016 issue. You know what I mean? One must agree, as the lawyer in LA, the district attorney even said that there was nothing that he could do after the tape had came out based on the fact that the statute of limitations had expired. So basically saying they want you to call this domestic violence, but he was forcing her to be in FOs. He controlled everything. He demanded that her nails be done a certain way on the red carpets, a Vanity Fair party in 2014. Deontay Nash told you. He shouted. Right? Now, once again, you know, knowing who Diddy is and who he's been over the years, as far as, you know, as fashion, owning Sean John and all of those things, right? That's no different than your wife or girlfriend wanting the best for you, or you to be on your best behavior and have your best foot forward, if you will, from that perspective. So once again, now they're trying to, you know, you're going on the Vanity Fair carpet. That goes back to the statement that was made earlier in regards to walk, turn around. You know what I mean? And wanting Capricorn Clark to see, like, okay, you know, here's the new artist that we have, right? And I just wanted to show you, like, yo, walk, turn around, whatever. That was nothing about control. That was simply about showing someone, hey, we got new talent. And like I said, it was also said that most of the resources of the label were going towards Cassie at that particular time. And Deontay Nash was not credible, ladies and gentlemen. Brianna Bongdalen was not credible. Mia was not credible. Like I said, the situation with the lying, being caught in that, the perjury, they don't want you to look at it from that perspective, though. It's only the perspective that benefits their argument or their position, if you will. AUSA Slavic Combs shouted, I thought I told y'all she had to have her hair up, right? Once again, this is about appearance and being an artist and being able to be your best from that perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, any record label, any in a movie, you have set directors, costume designers, image consultants. You have all of these people working behind the scenes to make a person look their best, or to help a person look their best when they're walking these red carpets and things like this. It was a whole nother level in dealing with Diddy. You know, as we all know, you going to the Met Gala, the Vanity Fair, you know, All of these are huge events, and like I said, once again, not only that, but there are pictures to prove that they were looking their best, if you will, right? She said, the prosecution said, I thought I told you, y'all, she had to have her hair up. He wouldn't let her make money from her music. She was offered the chance to do a Common video. Puff said no. He paid for her car, clothing, phones, and vacations. He made her dependent. No, he didn't make her dependent. Once again, they want to argue in one hand. Listen, they want to argue in one hand that she was assigned to a record label, right? Okay. Did she get a signing bonus? Now, whether she started to date Diddy or not was her business. She didn't have to. She started to. So once again, when somebody says that he paid for her car, clothing, phones, and vacation, he made her dependent. No, he didn't. That was up to her to become dependent on him from that perspective. Her career was in music. Right? And so from that perspective, one must understand that this is inconsistent with what the actual truth and testimony says. You see what's being implied. And she was offered a chance to do a Common video. That's not common for people to say no, or the record company not to agree. Did Diddy not agree to let Faith Evans on the Tupac song? You wonder why they called you bitch. The song that he did call that, right? Remember, Diddy wouldn't approve that, right? As a matter of fact, let's be clear. Faith made it seem like Diddy knew about it. He didn't even know. But in her book, she made it seem like he did know that she had did a feature with Tupac. And he didn't know. So once again, but like I said, he wouldn't have approved that anyway. It's a lot of times labels don't approve features. They don't approve videos. They don't approve a lot of things from that perspective. So that's not uncommon. AUSA Slavic, remember what Dr. Hughes said: when a victim is on unsure footing, the abuser has control. There was violence. He kicked her, dragged her. When it was bad, he hid her in hotels to heal and not be seen. You saw photos and videos. D-Rock, Rube, Paulie, they knew, right? Once again, taking the responsibility away from the individual, and saying, well, they knew. Well, what did Cassie know? Did she know also? Right? What did she do? You know what I mean? She should have left. My thing is, she should have left. She should have never stayed there to be with him, right? But once again, they're implying that somehow she was dependent. No, she had a record deal. So basically, Slavic says, the prosecution, he attacked her for attending a Prince party until Prince's security intervened. Mia and Mara Morales described abuse to you. Cassie told you when she got to the house, he threatened to release tapes, and he assaulted her in Jamaica. Once again, remember, the prosecution started it off talking about, they want you to see this as domestic violence. It is domestic violence. Diddy was wrong. You should never put your hand on a woman for no reason. Like I said, from that perspective. And so once again, but like I said, these incidences, should I say, should have been dealt with. And like I said, they weren't at that particular time. So now they flipped it and tried to turn this into some kind of a racketeering and corrupt organization situation. Absolutely, R. Hill. I agree with you. Shout out to Mo Better, R. Hill, Edward Green, Universal Ass, Sandra Love, Edward Green, Nick, who else? All of the people inside and outside of the chat, and the people, like I said, who watch, who don't want us to know that they're watching. We understand, and we like you too. You know what I mean? Like I said, despite what them not wanting to reveal themselves, we would ask that you would subscribe to the channel, and all of those things. Yeah, I mean, I guess I wouldn't say reading from the script. I would say basically, still reading from her notes, from her binder, if you will. R8 in the building. Salute. Tanya V in the building. Ravens fan 22. Welcome back, guys. Like I say, hit the like button, hit the thumbs up button. We had a slight technical difficulty earlier. We back up to almost 200 people in the room. And like I said, once again, hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Like I said, once again, you are very much appreciated over here as we keep this gavel to gavel coverage going. The prosecution says he beat her up in Las Vegas while she was curled up under the toilet. She said D-Rock cried. There was his assault at the Intercontinental Hotel, caught on tape. For Cassie, it was her normal. She was there when he attacked Amia. Devontae Nash and Bonner. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if y'all just caught that. I don't know if you just caught that. Remember, now the prosecution is saying once again that that Cassie was there when the situation happened with Brianna, right? And Cassie and Christina Karam were texting each other, and Cassie basically stated that she had found out she was not there, from what I understand. And that was one of the pieces of information. It was, 1 minute it was supposed to happen in a hotel, and then or Bonner's apartment or something like that, or Cassie's apartment. I'm sorry. But like I said, Cassie said she found out later on she wasn't there. So we'll see what happens with that. See if the defense seizes on that what may appear to be little hiccup. Slavic, Bonner may have gotten the date wrong. And see, now they're trying to close in on that. Bonner may have gotten the date wrong, but she had injured. One time, he has Cassie hold his guns for him. The diner and Suge Knight incident, Cassie was in the house. She saw. Why didn't she leave? Miss Hughes explained that hitting leads to fear. Right? So now, once again, they said they're claiming now that Bonner got the date wrong, right? it wasn't it was the prosecution's job to make sure that the date was right. The date that they entered was September 26th. And in fact, on that day, Diddy was not even in California, right? So therefore, that would make that statement inaccurate. Now they're saying, well, she got the date wrong. No, it wasn't that she got the date wrong. If the defense didn't come back with the facts, I wouldn't say alternative facts, but the alternative information, or the information contradicting what Vanna said, then they were cool with that date. Trust me, if they could get away with it, they're going to be cool with that date. And that's the date that it happened. But if now, by chance, that the defense came back with the date and it's happening somewhere else, right? Yeah, they doubled it, right? They doubling down on the lie, right? If the defense could come back with a date coming from somewhere else, thank you, Kai Hype. I appreciate that. Yeah, absolutely, doubling down on the lie. When the defense came back with these truthful dates as to where Diddy was, it was like, oops, you know what? She got the date wrong, but she had injuries. You're not even sure now if where she said she got those from, if it even had anything to do with Diddy at that particular time, right? Number one. Number two, she didn't go to a hospital or nothing like that. There was no doctor who could basically testify that, hey, you know, this is what I witnessed. This happened. These were the injuries. A doctor bill, a medical emergency room receipt, or anything, right? Just some pictures that she showed that she claimed that something happened on the 26th, right or wrong. So, like I said, once again, they keep mentioning Mrs. Hughes, which was the psychiatrist. Mrs. Hughes didn't interview anybody, Cassie, Bonner, Mia, any of these people. So, yeah, absolutely, she did perjure, and like I said, from what they said, like I said once again, but they're not focusing on that. AUSA Slavic, and they met for dinner in Malibu, and then he raped her on the living room floor. She said no. She cried, but he didn't take no for an answer. He raped her. He wrote, I could tell. He said, I could tell I didn't turn you on yesterday. That is, he raped her. Prosecution. Because of the trauma bond, after the rape, she met him at a friend's party and then had sex, consensual sex. This was a trauma bond. He had an MO, an hours-long performance. He masturbated and sometimes filmed, just like with Jane. Once again, they're calling it trauma bonding, ladies and gentlemen. The prosecution is calling it trauma bonding. And the R word, if you will. Shocking testimony, ladies and gentlemen. Hit the like button. Hit the thumbs up button, ladies and gentlemen. Over 200 people are back in the room. I appreciate you guys for sticking with me. Yaya's kids in the building. Welcome. Always a pleasure. Universal Ask. Sometimes the defendant told escorts to urinate on her. Sometimes he urinated himself. Why? To turn himself on. She began I believe, she became drug addicted. Here she wrote, I love our Rikers when we both wanted. Jurors, this is not an all or nothing situation. Right? Hold on. Now, it wasn't so much that we know that's a lie, because once again, you see the partial story being told here, and because Daniel Phillips was the first guy to testify. Daniel Phillips testified that Cassie wanted him to do that. And when he wouldn't do it right, the urination part, right? And when he wouldn't do it right, Cassie basically said, they said, stop, you're doing it wrong. Right? From that perspective. AUSA Slavic. And there were times he knew she didn't want to do it. And that is a sex trafficking. It ain't sex trafficking, dude. What is going on, man? She obviously didn't want to have an escort urinate in her mouth while she lay on the floor. Let's talk about the videos. You've seen clips. You don't see weapons, right? Once again, they really trying to work this, man. They really trying to work this one. Woo wee. Like I said, hit the thumbs up button, ladies and gentlemen. You see it right here, gavel to gavel coverage. Man. The prosecution, you see her having sex, masturbating. The defendant is moving the camera around. At times, focuses on the escort, not Cassie at all. It's clear this was about his fantasy, not Cassie's. March 5th, 2016, in the Intercontinental Hotel. The video. Michael Parker. Right, right. Like I said, all of these, Michael Parker, thanks for the donation. All of these arguments are preposterous, right? Like you said, Michael Parker says, so you should potentially send a man to jail for potentially 30 years for demanding that his girlfriend's nails be done a certain way. What a joke. Or not only that, but just to insinuate that that is some kind of crazy request. Not only that, her nails be done nicely, right? But also that he was paying for it. Or as an artist under his label, and now that they're currently dating, they said, well, she wasn't allowed to make money off of her music. Sure, she was. She did parties. She did a lot of things, but she was also his girlfriend. She could have broke that off at any time. Now, whether her career would have went anywhere is a whole nother question. Listen, check it out now. USA Slavic. Before the Intercontinental Hotel, Cassie had a premiere. It was a big night for her. She agreed to a freak off as damage control. Look at this. She says, I don't want you thinking I don't want to. She knows the defendant won't take no for an answer. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand, as to speak to what Cassie knows that Diddy knows is hearsay. But now we passed that stage because now we in the closing arguments. So now the prosecution is saying that she knows that Diddy won't take no for an answer. She doesn't know anything. Right? And it's saying she said damage control. She said, before the Intercontinental Hotel, Cassie had a premiere. It was a big night for her. She agreed to a freak off as damage control. She's saying before the Intercontinental Hotel, right? That she had so what damage control could they possibly she could possibly be trying to do damage control for? Look at this. She says, I don't want you to think I don't want to. She knows the defendant won't take no for an answer. It doesn't make any sense. AUSA Slavic, before the Intercontinental Hotel, you see that, right? The defendant, look, check it out. The defendant gets Jules to come. You know what happens? An argument. The defendant hits Cassie in the face. All she can think about is her premiere. She takes off without her shoes. The Intercontinental video shown. Once again, I would say this is about the seventh time that they've shown that video, ladies and gentlemen. Like I say, they want you to, they want you to remember the video from that perspective, if you will, right? Once again, that was a state situation, a state of California situation, and we know the situation behind that. ladies and gentlemen, we're back on the video again. Basically, the prosecution, he kicks her, then drags her back to the room where Jules is waiting. Why is the dragging relevant? Because Jules is there. The situation have multiple sessions. They were between sessions. He leaves her, but then takes her bags, but she doesn't follow him. Prosecution Slavic. Instead, Cassie is using the phone in the elevator lobby. The defendant is making another call, another conscious decision to take the bags into the room, then come back for Cassie, with his hands free. He grabs her phone, then makes the decision to stay. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, hey, look, you picked up on that one. My business. You picked up on that one too. How she slid that accusation in there. Absolutely. You see how they playing, man. A prosecution. Instead, Cassie is using the phone in the elevator lobby. The defendant is making another conscious decision to take the bags into the room and come back for Cassie. It doesn't even make sense because, as you just saw, she just said basically that Cassie was drugged back to the room where Jules was, right? Prosecution. He stays even though he's in a town and looks ridiculous. After Flores arrives, he stalls in the hall. He knows Jules is still in the room, possibly naked. The defense claims he took back drugs that day, but you can see he is in control. I'm sorry, she said he took back drugs, I think. The defense claims he took drugs that day, but you see, he's in control. Now, once again, the suggestion that a person didn't take drugs because they appear to be in control. Once again, when arguing on one side, they'll argue one thing. When arguing on the other side, they'll argue something different. It's crazy, man. Hit the like button, hit the thumbs up button, ladies and gentlemen. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please do. We greatly appreciate you guys. Yeah, absolutely. Suggesting that Cassie was drugged back to the room where Jules was. From that perspective, I mean, and you can clearly see, I wouldn't say that would be grounds for an appeal because you can clearly see that didn't happen. So her saying that, I would hope that they pick up on the fact that she said that, but that didn't actually happen. Like, why is she saying stuff that actually didn't happen as if they're not sitting there watching it? You know what I mean? But the suggestion that they're saying the defense claims that he took drugs that day, but you can see he is in control. Does that mean he didn't take drugs? Because it appears that he's in control. Right. Somebody can drive a car and appear to be in control, but have been drinking, correct? See how the logic doesn't even make sense? The prosecution, Cassie just wanted to get her bag and phone and leave. The defendant offered Flores money, but is a photo of Jane in the car back to her house. That's confusing. But this is a photo of Jane in the car back to her house with sunglasses and her black eye. I would think they mean Cassie from that perspective. He was using force to get Cassie to continue with the freak off. Now, hold on. She left. She was gone. She went home. So at that particular point, nothing actually happened other than the domestic aspect of what they were trying to imply, right? So JP 6 Gunner, what's good? Peace 4100, Country 87, R Hill. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, we had technical difficulties earlier, but now we have worked through those. Also, USA Slavic, the defense may tell you the violence was not connected to the situation involving Jews, but it was an attempt to get Cassie to continue with the freak off. Later, she wrote to him, "I'm not a rag doll. I'm someone's child." There were freak-offs in New York with Daniel Phillip. Now, if you listen to what was just implied by the prosecution, right? The situation that the prosecution just alleged didn't happen. The only thing that was the DV aspect of what was going on. As to everything else, it's speculation. You know what I mean? She don't know. My question is, did Jules testify? Why didn't they bring Jules in to testify? You know what I mean? I mean, unless they have something from Jules, like I said once again, why didn't they bring him in to testify? Because they're alleging something that from somebody who we haven't heard testimony from. Well, the defense actually is going to lay out their closing arguments tomorrow. So. ladies and gentlemen, as you see, the shot of the Intercontinental AUSA, let's walk through what happened at the hotel, at the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles in 2016. You've seen footage before, but today I want you to see it differently with context. Now, once again, the prosecution is attempting to offer some kind of context as to the video, as if the video does not speak for itself. Right or wrong, ladies and gentlemen? Does the video not speak for itself? I had technical difficulties with the camera, so I just blanked out the screen. Once again, you see it right here. They're saying now, let's walk through what happened at the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles in 2016. You've seen the footage before. We've seen it 20,000 times in the public, but today I want you to see it differently. How? With clarity, Cassie has just walked out of a freak off. She wanted out. But what does he do? Ladies and gentlemen, you see the picture, the Intercontinental right here? Huh? Check it out, ladies and gentlemen. It said he goes after her in the hallway in public on camera. He assaults her. Why? The defense says it was about a phone. A simple fight, a misunderstanding. But you know better now. He wanted her to come back to the freak off. Back to submission, back to control, right? This is what the prosecution is saying that was going on. My thing is, they never talked to Jules. Did Jules testify? Right? No, not that I remember. This wasn't a lover's spat. This was a sex trafficking in plain sight on surveillance in a luxury hotel hallway. This was power trying to force itself back into dominance, He didn't want her to walk away. He wanted her to obey. Like I said, the prosecution argument is compelling. But like I said, once again, we didn't talk to Jews. We don't know what that was. We don't know what that was about. We don't know. I think somebody, one of the security guards testified that somebody else was in the room. The security guard that said another male was in the room, right? But like I said, once again, we don't know what that was about. I mean, like I said, we don't know. And Cassie never really testified as to what that was about. Not that I remember. She may have, but not that I remember. In too much detail, if you will, from that perspective. Absolutely, Angie. The prosecution is basically adding its own narrative to the story of the video instead of letting the video speak for itself. Because all of what we know is what we see in the video, right? Now, if they had context, like say for instance, they're not referring to any testimony that Cassie gave in saying what happened. Now, if they went back to her testimony when she was under direct examination explaining what was going on, then that would be more compelling than the prosecution now trying to explain it and then saying, well, let's add context to it. You know what I mean? So that's the problem that I'm having with this here. But you know, hey, they got to do what they got to do, man. The prosecution said he wanted her to obey. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we're just waiting for the next piece of testimony, or should I say, a closing argument from the prosecution, if you will. waiting for the testimony to be updated. Hey, for everybody who's might be thinking, the defense will be beginning their closing arguments tomorrow, which should be really an interesting day. Like I said, we're hearing the prosecution's innermost exaggerations about what it is that Cassie said. Like I said, as you see right here, the prosecution is now attempting to add context to the Intercontinental video, when in fact the Intercontinental video speaks for itself, right? Other than what Cassie said, I haven't heard from the Jules guy, and Diddy didn't testify. The only people that would know what was going on in that room at that particular time, like I said, we can assume, we think we know what was going on or what they were fighting for. But like I said, Cassie never really elaborated as to what that was. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. The latest update. Let's go. AUS said Combs controlled every detail of Cassie's life, right down to her hair and nails and red carpet events. At the 2014 Vanity Fair party, she was told exactly how to style her hair. He blocked her career. She was denied a spot in the Common video. Ladies and gentlemen, these constant mischaracterizations of our events are really funny, based on the fact that you got to understand, the Common video situation is he blocked her career. She was denied a spot in the Common video. That's up to the record label. Record labels deny people features. They deny people appearances. They deny a lot of stuff, especially when it comes to one's musical career, because sometimes people can make a bad move. Not to say that this was going to be a bad move for Cassie, but like I say, a lot of times, you know, things like that happen, if you will, right? And so by, you know, he's basically, they're lying and say he blocked her career. There are videos of Cassie on YouTube talking about the people that she worked with, all of these other things that happened in her career. They pointed out she worked with Kid Cudi, we know, turned around, was fucking him, had an affair with him, and all of these things, some NFL player, a Michael B. Jordan, and so on and so forth, right? Worked with Nicki Minaj, Rick Ross, and a host of other artists from that perspective, right? And like I said, once again, the domestic violence, Diddy was wrong for that shit. You know what I mean? Like I said, we understand now who he is. And I think he's weaker because of it. He's not stronger because of what the world now knows about him. He's now weaker because of that. So, like I said, we'll see what happens. But the fact that saying that he blocked her career is simply not true. Here we go right here, ladies and gentlemen. The prosecution. After the worst episodes, he hid her in hotel rooms to recover out of sight. Photos and videos confirmed it. And D-Rock, Rue, Paulie, and all of them knew. He assaulted her at the Prince party until security stepped in. Friends Mia and Myra Morales described similar abuses. Once again, like I said, we've been saying all along that that's domestic violence. But for some odd reason, they're not describing the domestic violence, and that's a smack in the face to all domestic violence victims. When the prosecutors say they want you to see this as domestic violence, is a slap in the face to all the domestic violence victims, because it is in fact domestic violence, right? But the prosecution wants you to see what they want you to see in an effort to get him convicted of RICO, when in fact it's domestic violence and should never be taken lightly or minimized under no circumstances, right? Simple as that, right? You say, listen, prosecution, he threatened her with sex tapes at the house and attacked her again in Jamaica, in Las Vegas. She was curled up under the toilet when he beat her so badly that even D-Rock was moved to tears, right? According to Cassie. That's domestic violence. If D-Rock was moved to tears, D-Rock didn't do anything, did he? D-Rock kept rocking with Diddy. He was doing the D-Rock, the rocking with Diddy. I mean, come on, y'all. Money had everybody quiet. Cassie, D-Rock, the whole crew. Ain't saying nothing. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. USA 8, the prosecution. D-Rock even reported her state back to Combs. She's icing. Tell her to chill. He raped her on a Malibu living room floor. Ladies and gentlemen, he raped her on a Malibu living room floor. On a Malibu living room floor. She said no. She wept. He wrote afterwards, I could tell I didn't turn you on yesterday. That is rape. What? What? Because so basically now they're saying that because he says I could tell I didn't turn you on yesterday, that's rape? Because somebody may not have been as excited as they usually were in a sexual encounter involvement. Man, woo, we all in trouble then, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I mean, for one day, even women are in trouble. Women are in trouble for that one. So if a woman tells her man, you know, I could see that you really wasn't turned on yesterday or whatever, right? then what? She raped him too? Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we're seeing. Absolutely. She's right. The prosecution, but trauma bonds. Now the prosecution is a psychiatrist, but trauma bonds pulled her back. Hours-long performances, masturbations, filmmaker fantasies. Sometimes he even had escorts urinate on her, or urinate himself. Why? To satisfy his sexual fantasies. That wasn't so right. So this part right here, when she talks about to satisfy his sexual fantasies. So how does that equate to RICO though? I mean, and she said she enjoyed, doing what she liked to do. She became drug addicted. Texted, I love our freak offs when we both want it. right? So basically what she's saying is there was never a time when Diddy didn't want to freak off. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what this is basically what we're led to believe at this particular time, right? Yeah, people got more excuses than they got answers, man. It's a damn shame, actually. The prosecution, this was more or less damage control. You heard her say, I don't want you thinking I don't want to. She knew he wouldn't accept no, right? Or once again, well, I knew you wouldn't accept no. You don't know nothing unless you ask a person, right? If you never ask them, you don't know how they feel. But one can assume, and that assumption is just what a person assumes. Did you talk to him to see what he found out? No. Well, how did you know he was going to say no? Well, how do you know they was going to say yes? Well, I just figured. Right. Once again, somebody thinking something that's not really happening or should happen from that perspective. The prosecution. He dragged her by the hair back into the hotel room where Jules waited. Right? He took her bags. Listen, she said it again, ladies and gentlemen. She said it again. She's doubling and tripling down on a lie. Listen, he dragged her by the hair back into the room where Jules waited. That did not happen, ladies and gentlemen. We all seen the video, right? He took her bags, but she refused to follow. Instead, he used her phone in the elevator lobby. The defendant, even in a towel, chose to stay. Wow. I think the defense is going to key in on that, though. They're going to key in on the fact that what they're saying as far as being drugged into the hotel and all of that stuff really didn't happen. She said the prosecution trial update. Trial. That's not a separate attack. Listen. The prosecution. That's not a separate attack. It's part of the same coercion to get Cassie back into the freak off. Later, Cassie texted him, I'm not a rag doll. I'm someone's child. She had freak offs in New York with Daniel Phillips. Prosecution. Because Daniel wasn't paid. Listen, hold on. Said because Daniel wasn't paid, defense will say that proves no trafficking, right? Remember that Daniel testified that Diddy didn't pay him, right? That's no trafficking. So they're attempting to try to get in front of what Diddy people under the defense is going to say, basically saying that because Daniel wasn't paid, the defense will say that proves no trafficking, but trafficking doesn't require payment to the victim. Only control over them, ladies and gentlemen. That is very key. You heard that. Listen, they said trafficking doesn't only control over them. Now, y'all heard that. For the people in the room that don't really understand what's going on, who think they understand, hit the thumbs up button, hit the like button, hit the share button, ladies and gentlemen. We not going to lose the feed. We over here trying to feed you nothing but the facts. Did you see that? Listen, the prosecution said because Daniel wasn't paid, the defense will say that proves no trafficking, right? But trafficking doesn't require payment to the victim, only control over them, right? Meaning normally when a person talks about sex trafficking or pimping and prostitution, the prostitute is paid, right? which is usually the victim. They're saying Cassie and Jane are victims, right? And it doesn't require that they be paid because money was being paid out. And so Daniel at that one time, he said he didn't get paid. So understandably so, when you talk about this, the big picture is what? They're saying that, okay, because Jane or Cassie wasn't getting paid, it doesn't require that. It only requires that Diddy exercise control over them. That's simply not true. Well, how did she end up fucking with Kid Cudi if he exercised so much control? How did she fuck with the NFL player if he exercised so much control? And he didn't know. They didn't even live together. Well, you know what I mean? They didn't even live together. That's crazy. Daniel heard Combs yell, "Bitch, when I tell you to come here, you come here." That's regular people's relationship in some people's lives, right? Not everybody. Let's be clear. Not everybody talks to each other like that in their relationship, but some people do. Some people do in anger. You know what I mean? Some people do when they play with each other. You know what I mean? And just, they might be on the phone, be like, "Bitch, when I tell you come home, you better come home." You know what I mean? And she don't take it nowhere because that's the level of their relationship. Where she be like, "Nigga, when I tell you get over here, you better get over here." You know what I mean? And they could play like that. That's just the way they play. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that in this situation that Diddy was playing, I think he was meaning it in a serious way. Like, when I tell you come here, you come here. You know what I mean? From that perspective, that's the level of their relationship, not for the prosecution to try to add context as to what it means in her relationship as it means in their relationship. And now you're talking to people and they're thinking like, well, I would never have anybody talk to me like that. Yeah, he was kind of controlling. He was kind of coercing. Like, you know what I mean? They're now using their standards and method of operation in the relationship to judge you by. And the fact should only matter, So, yeah, that's crazy. That's like, you're forced to comply and deal with these people in their world of understanding, right? And not deal with it in your world how you understand it. Like our culture. Like somebody calling somebody, "That's my boo." That's something. That's what we made up. You know what I mean? But you may hear other cultures, other nationalities, and other races start to pick up. Usher made the song "My Boo." You know what I'm saying? And so now that's mainstream in pop culture, people use that terminology now, right? So, like I said, once again, it's crazy. Prosecution. They flew back to New York and he showed her freak off videos on board. He didn't show the freak off. That's another lie, ladies and gentlemen. He did not. He did not show no freak off videos on. And listen, the insinuation is he showed them on board to everybody on the plane. You see how that said? Look, they flew back to New York and he showed her freak off videos on board. He watched them himself or he showed them to other people? They're lying. It's just as plain and simple as that. He threatened to release sex tapes. In New York, they had another freak off. He threw her off a boat to scare her. Cassie said, "I didn't know what no would mean. He could be violent." Prosecutions. The defense says Cassie chose to stay, but put yourself in her place. You can't. You can't. Because if we're talking and being realistic, if the jurors were to put themselves in Cassie's place, right? Then some jurors, if the female jurors, would have probably never met him, would have probably never dealt with him, would have probably never been with him at all. Or the first inclination of some kind of freak off and them wanting to be, you can't put yourself in Cassie's shoes. Only Cassie can wear those shoes. Only Jane can wear those shoes. Only Diddy can. So it is disingenuous to ask the jury to put themselves in her shoes. Well, put yourself in her shoes, right? But put yourself in her place. This was force, leverage. See how they mention certain words? Force, leverage. There were drugs, disassociatives, and numbing agents to dull her pain. Yes, some messages sound consensual. No, they don't just sound consensual. They are consensual. The whole relationship was consensual, right? And what they've done is take a dysfunctional relationship and try to turn it into a sex trafficking situation, from what I understand. Said the defense says that Cassie chose to stay, but put yourself in her place. Yes, some of the messages sound consensual. That doesn't mean she wanted it. Ladies and gentlemen, that ought to tell you everything that you need to know about this situation right now. Those last two sentences. Yes, some messages sound consensual, but that doesn't mean she wanted it. What the fuck does consent mean? Wow. What listen, do y'all see that? The prosecution said, yes, some of the messages sound consensual. No, they don't just sound consensual, they are consensual. Now they're trying to put words in front of actual facts to try to get you to have an ulterior perspective on the facts. Think about it now. Some messages sound consensual, right? No, they are consensual. They are. She was with Diddy for 10 years. It was a lot of consensual everything, right? But then she says after that, but that doesn't mean she wanted it. Then what the fuck does consent mean then? Ladies and gentlemen, help me understand. Amazing. It sounds consensual, but that doesn't mean she wanted it. That's crazy. You see it. I didn't make that up. That ain't nothing that came out of my mouth. If you told that to somebody, if you as an individual told that to somebody, right? What would be the first thing that they would say to you? What would they say? They would say what? Well, consent is giving permission, right? See how they want to use it when they want to use it in another way? What they do? Amazing. Yeah, this is TikTok logic. You right about that, Anonymous 3. Ann and Lee in the building. Chris Francis in the building. Yeah, you right about that, man. This shit is crazy. It's crazy as hell. You see that in the last piece of testimony, y'all see it. I don't have to tell you about it. You see it for yourself. What does it say? Yes, the prosecution is saying yes. Some of the messages sound consensual. No. And notice that when she says some of the messages sound consensual, right? Well, some of the messages are consensual. Most of consent is what it is. But notice that she put the word she uses. This is word salad. You know what I mean? It's like, well, some of the stuff sounds consensual. You know what I mean? Listen to some of it sounds consensual. You know what I mean? I really don't know, but some of it does sound consensual, right? But that doesn't mean she wanted it. Amazing. Fucking amazing, man. This shit is crazy. But that doesn't mean she wanted it. I need y'all to ponder on that for a minute. The last two sentences of that last piece of testimony. 125. You see it, right? The prosecution says, yes, some of the messages sound consensual. That doesn't mean she wanted it. That's a lot of dudes been putting that trick bag right there. Well, it sounded consensual, but she didn't want it, but that doesn't mean she wanted it. Well, what the fuck does consent mean? I mean, we got a new meaning for consent now? Poe the Great said consent means no, I guess. No, I guess. Right. Right. I guess. I mean, like I said, a lot of people have a lot of different definitions of different words. Remember, I told you, you could tell two people the same thing and they come up with different interpretations as to what a person means. You know? Yeah. It's crazy, but it's the truth. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We back. Check it out. The prosecution. He bought her an AMX ticket, paid a $2,000 bill, a message, I will tip you for what? Sex. And that was just one ticket. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, it's the prosecution's interpretation. It's not. So now, did that come from? Was that explicit from Diddy's mouth? Read it now. You got to read it carefully. He bought her an AMX American Express ticket, right? He bought an American Express ticket, ladies and gentlemen. Paid a $2,000 bill, messaged, I will tip you. And the prosecution is saying, for what? Sex. And that was just one incident, ladies and gentlemen. What is the prosecution talking about? What is the prosecution talking about? There was another with Jews beginning at 7 a.m. at Turks. Combs asks, how should I pay Paul? He paid for Paul's travel. For what? Sex. AUSA, this part is compelling a little bit, right? You know, you got to be honest, right? AUSA, these aren't one-off events. These are racketeering acts, travel, payment, coercion, organization. The law doesn't require that everyone fully consents. The fact remains that he orchestrated this. Sean Combs is guilty. Sean Combs is guilty. You bastards. They're coming with the A game, son. They trying to drop the bomb. He bought her an AMX ticket, paid a $2,000 bill, messaged, I will tip you. For what? Sex. And that was just one incident. There was another with Jews, beginning at 7 a.m. at Turks. Combs asks, how should I pay Paul? He paid for Paul's travel. For what? Sex. These aren't one-off events. These are racketeering acts. Travel, payment, coercion, organization. The law doesn't require that everyone fully consents. The fact remains he orchestrated this. Sean Combs is guilty. Ladies and gentlemen, hit the thumbs up button, hit the like button, hit the share button. You know what I mean? We up in here, man. Straight Game TV, man. Like I said, tell a friend. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, please do. Yes, Lord. Sean Combs is guilty. We ain't really got shit to run on, but that's what we gonna say. She said, Sean Combs is fucking guilty, you bastards. Wow. JP6 Gunner, welcome. Chris Francis, welcome. Keita in the building. Yes. The fact remains he orchestrated this. Sean Combs is guilty. He orchestrated everything. I can't wait till tomorrow to see who does the closing arguments for the defense, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be really, really interesting as the anticipation and waiting for the verdict, if you will. You know? We're going to see if Sean Combs ends up in prison for the next 10 to 15 years. You know what I mean? Straight game, RB. Absolutely. We up in here, man. Keeping up with Lou. What's happening? Nah, they ain't done yet. Not yet. Not yet. They ain't done yet. We up in here, man. Like I said. What's the last sentence say? The fact remains he orchestrated this. Sean Combs is guilty. He's guilty. You know, I trip off of the fact that you know, when they have situations like when they have like prostitution stings, if you will, So my thing is, if somebody is paying, if they're paying for sex, right? They're considered a John, right? Or it's called solicitation of prostitution, if you will, right? I mean, that don't even usually carry no charge. I mean, and no real punishment. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I think it, you know, if the guy's married, it might embarrass him a little bit. But I mean, as far as the big picture, you know, I don't think it, you know, how that compares to this situation is yeah. Y'all see it at the bottom. He orchestrated this. Sean Combs is guilty. And you must find him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, ladies and gentlemen. Shit is funny. Funny, man. Doesn't matter what I tell you. I will lie to you because I'm a lying bastard. 8 minutes ago. They're taking a break, ladies and gentlemen. AUSA Slavic. KK helped Cabral book his travel. Combs asks her for cash. She knows exactly what is going on. She facilitated travel for the escorts. Each is a racketeering act. You only need to find 2X. Please find 2X. Just here, there are a dozen. Afternoon break, okay? You see it, ladies and gentlemen, here right in front of your face, man. Gavel to gavel coverage. Gavel to gavel coverage right here. Straight Game TV. Straight Game.
They said Tupac was untouchable, but behind the walls of Rikers Island, he was just a man, wounded, watching his back, and wondering who he could trust. He survived bullets, betrayal, and isolation behind bars. But what happened inside those walls has never been told until now. In the darkest corner of Rikers, he found betrayal and a brotherhood no one saw coming. These dudes smiled in my face, then flipped and tried to kill me, and I never saw it coming. They were Puff's security, Biggie's muscle, Henchman's people, and Tupac knew exactly who sent them. This is the side of Tupac Shakur the world never got to see, told by the man who lived it with him, not in the studio, but in a 6x9 cell. The rap battles, sex and drama with female guards, the tears, the silence after Jada Pinkett's visit, and the moment Tupac almost broke. Before death row, before All Eyes on Me, before Machiavelli, there was Rikers. Behind the Walls with Tupac Shakur, available now on Amazon. Get your copy. Learn the truth.
So they're on a little break, ladies and gentlemen. They're on a little break. We ain't going nowhere this time. We staying right here with you. Tell me, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think about the prosecution's argument so far during these closing arguments? From 1 to 10, if you could put it in the chat, be very appreciative. From 1 to 10, what do you think about the prosecution's closing arguments today? Absolutely, Yaya kids. Tell them. Smash the like button and the share button. Straight Game over here. He said -11. Zero. Feelings. Poe the Great 3. On Andrea says 1. Peace 4100 said 3. Letitia says 1. Chuck Love, hot garbage. That shit is hot garbage. Chuck Love said that shit is hot garbage, man. Absolutely. Like I said once again, and when we take into consideration, who else is that? R Hill said -1. Rod says 1. YouTuber, what YouTuber say? What YouTuber? What you say? YouTuber says 5. So YouTubers think we all love Diddy, man. If we don't love Diddy, we trying to weave through the bullshit. Like I said, once again, they saying one thing, and we understand that Cassie and the testimony said another thing. So it's like, hold on. Prosecution, like, we need a conviction. To hell with the truth. We're gonna stretch it as far as we can. Yaya Kids -1. It was at Zoom 3, 4. RB -1. R Hill -1. Rob Bracy 1. Oh man, this is interesting, y'all. It says 0 related facts. I understand, like I say, me personally, I understand where they trying to go and what they're trying. These are predicated acts. But what they fail, what they're trying to say, but what they don't want to say is that both of these were long-term relationships, and it was just situations that was involved in their relationship, right? Even if they paid for somebody to come to have sex or whatever, it wasn't from a I would say a vague standpoint, wasn't really implied. It was just something that was normal in their relationship, and they usually know what was going down. Like I said, as to the illegal aspect of it, I understand, case law and things like that. But it seems like the defense always argued their position, even in the Rule 29 motion, right? They were arguing case law. They were arguing, So, like I said, once again, when we deal with that aspect of it, it's a whole nother playing field, if you will. So, yeah, it's definitely interesting. Okay, and another thing, ladies and gentlemen, this was another piece of testimony right here. The prosecution said, let's talk about Reggie, right? He flew in from Las Vegas to LA for one reason, sex. Jane sent him $1,100 via Cash App. Ladies and gentlemen, Jane sent him $1,100 via Cash App, ladies and gentlemen. Jane, stop this crazy thing. Jane sent him $1,100 via Cash App. Here's the hotel folio. $4,000 in damage. Body fluids on the floor. It couldn't be clearer. What couldn't be clearer? Did they have rough sex? What couldn't be clearer, prosecution lady? Right? What couldn't be clearer? Oh man, Lord have mercy. These people. Woo, wait, this is crazy, man. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Look, check this out right here. Look. Once again, it says the catch-up game, right? Look, prosecution. Every time Christina Karam arranged a travel for these Wild King nights, she helped facilitate a crime. Maybe she didn't like it, but she did it. But guess what? That's another lie, because once again, Cassie said, Jane said that they never knew and they didn't want the assistants to know what was actually going on. That was in the testimony. So when she says that Christina Karam, maybe she didn't like it, but she did it, she didn't know, according to Cassie, according to Jane. So now the prosecution is trying to infer that Christina Karam knew what was going on when she didn't. Right? Maybe she didn't like it, but she did it. She set up Wild King travel to Las Vegas. You heard it straight from Combs. The wildest Wild King night in Vegas. His own words. Right? 135. Christina Karam knew exactly what was going on. She wasn't just booking rooms. She was inducing travel for prostitution. That's a crime. That's racketeering. Here's an audio message Combs sent to Christina Karam asking to hunt for the sexiest, most unapologetic Wild King sex room in Vegas. That's not what the fuck. That ain't got nothing to do with he talking about booking a hotel room. Whether she knew what was going on behind closed doors. See, once again, and this is the problem. 1 minute they want to argue. 1 minute they want to argue. Cassie said that Christina Karam, or I won't even say argue, because when they're being asked on the stand, Jane basically said, we waited until, the coast was clear. All of the assistants and employees and all of those things were gone, right? They might be setting up a hotel, whatever. Everybody's gone because they don't really want them to know what's going on, right? This is testimony live from the case. Now that the prosecution is doing closing arguments, the prosecution now wants us to believe that what? That Christina Karam knew when Cassie and James said that she didn't. Now, this is the prosecution witness saying that. Also, Brendan Paul. Right? I'm just saying this is what the testimony absolutely a killer, Rob. We not sheep. But this is crazy. Think about what they're saying, though, what they're implying now. AUSA. Listen, the prosecution, this wasn't just a phrase. Wild King nights meant sex with escorts. Right? You have to prove, but see, this is the thing. They haven't proved that Christina Karam knew. Why didn't they lock her up? Right? They probably say, we're going to lock her up if we convict Diddy. She'll easily plead guilty. Right? AUSA, this wasn't just a phrase. Wild King nights meant sex with escorts. She helped book Cabral's travel. She got the cash. She made the plan. She made the plans. She knew the game. And each time she did it became another racketeering act. Prosecution only needs to find two. You only need to find two, but just in this portion alone, there are dozens. 5-minute afternoon break. Wow. Wow. Y'all see it right here. Tell me what you think in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Right. That's what they want you to believe. Right. Hey, that's what they want you to believe. When you think about that from that perspective, they want you to believe that lying to a female is fraud, but when they lie to you, it's their God-given right. I was just protecting myself. I didn't know him. I ain't really trust him, and X, Y, and Z, and all of the other things that, from that perspective, right? Not all women. Let's be clear. Some women are So basically, the prosecution is supposed to be resting their case today, ladies and gentlemen. The prosecution is supposed to be resting their case today, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, we waiting to see what happened. Let's get some shout outs, man. Get some shout outs up in the building, man. We got winner, Universal Ags. Is that Larry Jackson, JP Six Gunner, Chris Francis, Yaya Kids, in the building. Appreciate you, Yaya. Kiana, what's that? Kiana Carver, right? Kiana Carver in the building. Who else? Letitia F, Nancy Nicole, Poe the Great, R. Hill, Chris Francis, Anonymous 3, iRock J's, Cut Creatives, Peace 4100, Kiefer Mott Hotep, Killer Rob, Cut Creatives, and everybody else in the building. Corey Simmons, My Style Sense, Classy. Yeah, we trying to keep it, we just trying to, keep it accurate, man. You know what I mean? I like accurate information. Then I can make an informed decision. You know what I mean? I don't like inaccurate information. Like I said, once a person lied to you, man, they you kind of when you've been lied to, by the government, by the press, and all of that, and all of that, or anybody in particular, you know what I mean? Everything they say now becomes, skeptical, if you will. You know what I mean? Peace 4100. Olu Fosh. Through Manga, what's good? Tanya V. Winter. It's summer now, winter. What's happening? Y'all kids, one more time. Thank you. I appreciate that. They're back, ladies and gentlemen. They're back. 3:31 p.m. They're back. When Judge Submarine asks AUSA Slavic how much more time she has, she says 1 hour. Judge entering. All rise. AUSA Slavic, I expect the judge will instruct you on forced labor. Shows chart. So she's showing the chart right now, right? AUSA Slavic, you heard of forced labor of four. He said you've heard forced labor of 4 women: Cassie and Jane, Mia and Capricorn. Bullshit. Forced labor? Forced labor? What are they talking about, man? Cassie and Jane, it was grueling sexual services. Oh my goodness. Grueling sexual services. So they weren't girlfriends. They weren't girlfriend, boyfriend. See, one minute then it turns into grueling sexual services. Wow. Amazing, ladies and gentlemen. You see this shit? You heard of forced labor of 4 women: Cassie and Jane, Mia and Capricorn. Cassie and Jane, it was grueling sexual services. Cassie called them grueling up to 4 days, or maybe even more. Jane said the same thing. So let me be clear, man. Let me be clear. They were providing sexual services based on what? So they weren't boyfriend and girlfriend? There was no relationship? Cassie wasn't with Diddy for 10 years? Jane's still with Diddy. Diddy's still paying her rent right now. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, is it forced sexual? No. Hold on. Sexual service. So why is Diddy still paying Jane rent? Oh, man. Oh, man. Well, the Rule 29 motion, somebody's asking what happened to the Rule 29. The Rule 29 motion basically says they kind of act like they weren't going for certain acts in regards to that, but they still talked about it in the closing arguments, right? The Rule 29 motion is basically, also protects you on an appeal, right? And basically proving that the government in certain counts, basically they saying all the counts, right? That they didn't prove it. So the Rule 29 motion, it's all good. It doesn't even, like I said, once again, it doesn't even matter from that perspective. It was argued favorably, so much so that the prosecution was forced to basically capitulate. You know what I mean? And they, the Kid Cudi car incident, and the Capricorn Clark kidnap incident, the Cassie kidnap incident, all of those incidents were basically not among the won't be a part of the jury instructions, if you will. So, they won't be trying to get prosecution for that. So that's what that meant. But they said Cassie and Jane, it was grueling sexual services. Cassie called them grueling, up to 4 days, maybe even more. Jane said the same thing. So they were providing sexual services. Oh, well, shit. All the women that are married now, they provide. If they married to a rich man, they provide sexual services, right? Right or wrong, ladies and gentlemen? Huh? They providing sexual services if they married, right? So it's kind of crazy. Ladies and gentlemen, say Cassie and Jane were on call to perform freak-offs for the defendant whenever he wanted. Wherever he wanted, he used force. He used force or threats of force. He would say, let's finish in a high note. That ain't, oh God, let's finish on a high note. Let's push through. You're not tired, are you? Amazing, y'all. Amazing. I'm telling you now, you can't even think of this. This is craziness on top of craziness, man. This is craziness on top of craziness, man. Let's look. Check this out. They said Cassie and Jane were now on call. They were on call. So did they have a right to refuse the call or what? They didn't live. See, you know the crazy part about this is they didn't even live with Diddy. You know what I mean? I could see if they lived with him, then you can kind. They ain't even live with him. They ain't even have to show up. They ain't have to take the rent. They ain't have to. You know what I mean? No, I don't need you to pay my rent. No, I got my own spot. It might not be up to your standards and where you live and all of that other stuff, right? But I got my own. It don't have to be what you want it to be, right? Simple as that. As simple as that. But said they was on call now. Cassie and Diddy weren't in a relationship. They were on call. Cassie didn't go to the Met Gala and the red carpet events and the Vanity Fair events. She was on call. That wasn't her there with him. That was a stunt double. You see what I'm saying? See the characterization of how they trying to they were on call. What do you mean? Cassie was his girlfriend. They was walking red carpets together, right? Cassie and Diddy, they were known to be an item in the industry, right? Now what was going on behind their closed doors was just what that was. It had nothing to do with what we should understand it to be or what we expected from them. This is not that. This is somebody trying to say, I need you to judge their sex life. I need you to judge them and tell me, is this normal? Convict them for not doing normal shit that normal and regular people do. We need a conviction for this. Because guess what? It's two women on call. Yeah, Tanya V, it seemed that way to me. But like I said, what do we know, huh? AUSA Slavic, Christina Cabral booked his travel. Combs asked for cash, right? And 37 minutes ago, they trying to say it. Here we go. He put his hand up her dress. She came into the bedroom and penetrated. He came. Hold on. They talking about Mia. I think this is about Mia, if I remember correctly. He put his hand up her dress. He came into her bedroom and penetrated her. He came into the closet and forced her to perform oral sex on him. There was a time in the bathroom of the private jet she can't fully remember. Repeated traumatic events. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, they weren't in the bathroom. They were in like a back bedroom, according to what Mia had described. She didn't describe the bathroom. That's another inaccuracy by the prosecution. Like I said, for the people who've been following along and understand what's been going on, there's a lot of and once again, now there were other people. She said she couldn't fully describe. It wasn't that she couldn't fully describe it. Other people were on the plane, right? And she said that they might see. They weren't in the bathroom. That's a lie. They were in like the back of the plane. Like you have your sitting area and you have a sleeping area, right? And she said that he was waiting like back behind, and she came and she was like, somebody might see or whatever. Well, my thing was, when that came out, I was thinking like, well, damn, you want somebody to see, don't you? Don't you want somebody to see and hear so you can say, help, he's doing something wrong to me, or you know what I mean, or whatever. That was my argument, but the prosecution has a different way of looking at it, right? Check it out. The prosecution, she was clear as a bell, even under cross-examination. She performed labor and services, including sexual services. Ladies and gentlemen, now she's trying to argue their civil case for them too. Excuse me. They including sexual. She performed sexual services. Once again, none of this was brought up until Mia received, or should I say, obtained a civil lawyer. None of this was brought up. For the people that don't really know, none of this stuff was brought up until she got a civil lawyer and began to testify in this case. As a matter of fact, Mia had sued Diddy for overtime pay for her regular job, and she had a lawyer, and Diddy actually settled for $400,000. I think Mia said she got $200,000 and the lawyer got $200,000 from that perspective, right? At that particular time, these alleged sexual assaults had happened, and even during that time, and trying to get the money for what she was calling her overtime and things that she wasn't paid for, she never mentioned to that lawyer at that particular time that anything sexual had went on. Ladies and gentlemen, I just need for the people who don't understand and know that these are the facts, right? Right? So now they're saying Mia performed labor and services, including sexual services. He threw her against the wall and slammed a door on her arm. She saw violence at Prince's party and on Turks. Right? These are all of the things that she's describing that has allegedly happened, right? But she mentioned none of these things, right? When it came down to her suing for the overtime and the things that she was filing a lawsuit for, from that perspective. So, and the prosecution said they have 1 more hour. We running it back up, ladies and gentlemen. We almost got 300 people in here, man. Hit the thumbs up button, ladies and gentlemen. We up in here, man. We up in here. Listen, Slavic, she was clear as a bell. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about Mia. When they were in South Africa, Christina Karam told Mia, if you don't call him in 10 minutes, you don't have a job. That wasn't coercion. That was her not doing her job. And Christina, as his assistant, basically telling her, look, if you don't call him in 10 minutes, you're not going to have a job. Not based on what Christina is saying, right? But based on what her job description and her job requirement was. He has all the power and control. Of course, she worked for the guy. You know what I mean? She worked for the guy. So when you understand that, it's crazy. Right? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm like I said once again, when we talk about being real, understanding what it is, listen. So if you're not doing your job, right? On your job, anybody in the chat's job or anybody watching that's not in the chat, your job, your boss, if you don't call your boss right now, he gonna fire you. She was making $100,000 a year. I would honestly say Diddy paid generously. You know what I mean? Now, it might not, for all the other little stuff that was going on, he paid generously. But when we talk about what they're implying as he had all the power, she knew she couldn't say no, even to little things. Mia knew that her job was to protect the defendant. Her job wasn't to protect the defendant. Mia didn't know what was going on with Cassie at that particular time. She said she didn't know about that. So protect him from what? Once again, the implications, the implying something from that perspective, right? Crazy. The prosecution, human resources, was for Combs. She couldn't go to the police due to Combs' power. The threats left her with no options. I expect you're going to hear that she could have left. That she told Combs she loved him. Mia pulled no punches. There were high highs. Prosecution, Slavic, and low lows. Capricorn Clark had an issue with overtime. She took the issue to the head of HR, Vashta Wilson, right? But HR was the defendant's puppet. The defendant and Uncle Paulie threatened her in Central Park. And the lie detector, and taken to Kid Cudi's. Notice how they keep trying to pound on the same thing, right? Absolutely not. She didn't call the police. Notice how they keep going back to the Kid Cudi. He didn't burn Kid Cudi's car up, prosecution. You don't have proof of that. You keep mentioning it, but you said yesterday you wouldn't deal with that. But you are. You're lying. I'm just fucking with y'all. But yeah, no, like I said once again, y'all see it though, ladies and gentlemen. You know, like I said, when it comes to just keeping it 100 about what's going on with this situation, yeah, it's simply not what they want it to be. It's simply not what they want it to be, ladies and gentlemen. And like I said, when it doesn't fit certain people's narratives, it's a problem. It's a problem. Like I said, once again, now the prosecution is now describing what the HR situation was like, right? Involving that. You know what I mean? If you think that they're putting up a good argument, give me a thumbs up. If not, give me a thumbs down. Please, for the people in the chat. If you think they're putting up a good argument, thumbs up. If you don't, thumbs down. Through Manga, thumbs down. Tanya V, thumbs down. Universal Action, thumbs down. It's She, thumbs down. Chris Francis, welcome. Letitia, thumbs down. All Hill, thumbs down. JP6 Gunner. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's a lot of exaggeration going on, man. Appreciate you, Yaya Kids. Thumbs down. It's a lot of exaggeration going on. It's kind of like in the streets, right? You know, people start rumors and stuff, and people start Chris Francis, Corey Simmons, thumbs down. Edward Green, Winter, lies, lies, lies. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, like I said once again, What we got? Okay. Here we go. AUSA Slavic. Capricorn had a son to provide for. Combs threatened to blacklist her. Once again, that wasn't true. Capricorn went on to find even a higher paying job than when she worked for Diddy. This is what she said that Diddy did, right? Now, witness tampering and obstruction after Cassie filed her lawsuit. This weaves the whole story together. Jane wrote, "You gaslit me." She posted a problem for the defendant. She posed a problem for the defendant. Ladies and gentlemen, notice how they mentioned that wasn't the alleged witness tampering situation, right? The alleged witness tampering situation wasn't about Jane. It was supposed to be about Mia. But Mia cracked for money. Mia wanted some money when D-Rock had called her. I think she said something yesterday in the Rule 29 motion that when he contacted her, she said something to the effect of I'm out of cash, right? And they didn't what's the name her, but at that particular time, Diddy didn't even know, or should I say the prosecution didn't prove that Diddy was aware, right, of any pending indictment or federal investigation at that particular time. The prosecution just can't say that, yeah, it was witness tampering. They would have to have proof that he knew about it through some ways or means in regards to, then he would be able to try to tamper with witnesses or whatever have you, right? It's just as simple as that. Like I said, once again, that wasn't proved, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, now they're saying, they're saying that Jane posed the problem. How the hell Jane posed the problem? He's still paying Jane rent and paying for her lawyer right now. No, the government posed the problem for Jane because they threatened to indict her ass for sex trafficking. Right? Right now, Jane is on OnlyFans. So is OnlyFans sex trafficking too? I know, I'm just saying, like, if they provide for space for somebody to go and do what they do, whether it's, I don't know what, because I never really went on OnlyFans before. So, whatever they do, right? If somebody's paying for it, right? Then that would be basically, if they were providing some kind of service or whatever it is, that would be basically the people that own OnlyFans could be charged with prostitution. And you know what I mean? It's crazy. Yeah, hey, like I said, I'm looking forward to tomorrow also. I can't wait, man. I can't wait. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, the prosecution. So Combs called Jane. The calls were recorded on Christina Karam's phone. You can listen to them on November 19th, 2023. Cassie's lawsuit was already settled, but he is afraid of a criminal investigation. Listen, this is speculation. Remember, I told you they would have to prove that Diddy knew about it. Listen, they're saying what he was afraid of. Listen to what I'm trying to explain to you guys, man. Listen to what I'm trying to tell you. Right? Listen. So Combs called Jane. The calls were recorded on Christina Karam's phone. You can listen to them on November 19th of 2023. Cassie's lawsuit was already settled, but he was afraid of a criminal investigation. He calls and asks, "What can I do to make you feel better?" Right? Now, what can I do to make you feel better? Is witness tampering? You would have to, number one, prove that there's an investigation. He thought that shit was over. From that perspective, I mean, one can speculate what they think he was afraid of. Think about what I'm trying to say. Man, he was afraid of this, so he called her. So he calls Jane and says, "What can I do to make you feel better?" Wasn't she feeling bad? Wasn't they still together? Right? The prosecution, he says, "I can't be speaking on the phone." He is worried that the U.S. Will get 3 years of his text messages with Jane. How is he worried about that? And they got him anyway. Right? While he's recording the call, he tries to convince her she was willing. He says, "We just did some kinky shit I thought we both enjoyed." Right? The fact of the matter is, once again, they didn't prove that he knew about any kind of investigation. They're saying that he was scared, right? They did some kinky shit that they both enjoyed. It's proof that they enjoyed it because it was said in messages that they enjoyed it, right? Let's be clear. Even if Diddy was recording those conversations, ladies and gentlemen, let's be clear. Even if he was recording the conversations, it wouldn't have mattered because those conversations wouldn't necessarily have been admissible, right? Now, they got the conversations off of Christina Karam's phone, and they began to use those conversations, right? Against him. But then when Jane was cross-examined, she came across when Teeny Garagos cross-examined her. Oh man, she let it be known. That's what she was after. She was after money. She said, I was doing whatever it took to be whatever. You think Diddy knew that after he running around claiming her as his girl and all of this, paying $10,000 for her rent and giving her $10,000 a month for an allowance, and she telling Diddy, you make my son so happy, he's so happy with you, and all of this other shit. So now they don't even want you to look at that no more. They just want you to see it for this raunchiest shit ever, right? I can't wait till tomorrow. I swear to God, I can't wait till tomorrow. This is gonna be great, man. This is gonna be great. This is gonna be great. Ladies and gentlemen, hit the thumbs up button, hit the like button, hit the share button. If you have not subscribed to the channel, even if you're not in the chat, please do so. We do nothing but straight game over here, ladies and gentlemen. We bobbing and weaving the bullshit. Right? Right? The prosecution. Do you hear on the recorded call the sound of notes being taken with a Sharpie to plan how to get what they want Jane to say? You've seen that in this trial, the lawyers passing notes to each other. Wow. Hold on. So you've seen that in the trial to get notes passing to each other, right? It doesn't matter what she says on the phone to them. It really, truly, honestly doesn't. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what she said on the phone. If they was trying to get her to say certain shit, it doesn't really matter. Because when she got in court, she didn't say what they thought that she said on the phone anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. But when she was under cross-examination, she was forced to admit, or not, I wouldn't even say forced to admit, the cross-examination was done so thoroughly that she admitted it. How much did the Bottega Veneta bag cost? Well, how much my body cost? That's what she said, right? I wanted to travel with you a little bit more. What, I need to fuck a little bit more to whatever. Like I said, she seen herself as that. She put herself out there as that. You understand what I'm saying? So when we understand the truth of the nature, you see what it is. Prosecution, what? She said, do you hear on the recorded call the sounds of notes being taken with a Sharpie? Amazing. This shit is crazy, man. He posted a double. Let's see what this up over here. He posted a double whammy that time. Check it out, ladies and gentlemen. See, we can go. We got double the information. We got two people playing it differently from the courtroom, right? A shout out to Jewel Manzi for being so thorough. Also, the USA. And what happened? Capricorn was threatened not just by Combs, but by Uncle Paulie in the middle of Central Park. Then came the lie detector test, and then we get into the prosecution. Ladies and gentlemen, this wasn't just a toxic workplace. This was an enterprise of fear, control, and silencing. And it was all orchestrated by one man. Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. So what we're to believe, what the prosecution wants us to believe is this. that Diddy never worked at Uptown Records with Andre Harrell as an intern. That Diddy didn't discover Mary J. Blige. That Diddy didn't bring out the notorious B.I.G., a.k.a. Biggie. Didn't sign 112. Didn't have Faith Evans. Didn't have the Locks. Didn't put out his own records that did well. They want you to believe all of these things, and it simply is crazy as hell. Right? Where's Gina? Like I said, they used Gina to get the certain part of the search warrant, ladies and gentlemen. She never testified. She never testified. And they couldn't compel her to testify. Right? Simple. I did a video basically letting the world know that the person that could hurt Diddy the most was Gina. Right? Listen, ladies and gentlemen. Prosecution Slavic. Then Combs had D-Rock reach out to Mia, asking her to say something. Mia told you her reaction to this call. She had seen the defendant bash in Cassie's head. D-Rock had seen it too. He was asking her to agree with a lie. Right? What lie was that? Prosecution. As the federal investigation grew, they kept reaching out to Mia. D-Rock calls her 5 times in a row. The chart Miss Sanker presented to you brings this together. Now, once again, at the particular time, see what they're insinuating is that Diddy knew he was under investigation, but they never proved that, ladies and gentlemen. They never proved it. You see what they just said, right? As the federal investigation grew, he never knew he was under federal investigation. According to him. I don't know whether he knew or not, but according to him, it's not even whether he knew or not. The government didn't prove that he knew to be able to prove that he was tampering with witnesses, ladies and gentlemen. Right? Now, you could call somebody and be like, yo, you know what I mean? Whatever. That don't mean that you getting somebody to agree or you witness tampering, because they could be a witness for you, not a witness against you. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, once again, for all intents and purposes, everybody sees the money that Cassie now wasn't scared, right? Or whatever she felt like she was doing at that time where she got this settlement. And so from that perspective, one must understand, okay, cool. Here come Mia. She got her lawsuit. Here come Breonna Bungling. She got her lawsuit. They concocted some kind of story that didn't really add up. But the government was like, oh no, you know, even though she didn't remember the dates, she had bruises. Don't know whether Diddy did that or not, because on the day that they said that he did it, he wasn't even in town. So understanding these things, ladies and gentlemen, one must understand what this is. So it's not whether Diddy was witness tampering. They didn't prove or include or introduce any kind of evidence, right? That basically says what? That Diddy knew that he was under federal investigation. They just said what? As the federal investigation grew, they kept reaching out. That's not against the law. Right? It's simply not against the law. So, you know, once again, trying to paint that picture is very pivotal at this particular time, right? Here you go. Right here, right now. the prosecution to rewrite her trauma as fantasy, and she already told him, "You gaslit me." And in the background, you hear scratching of a Sharpie and the whole 9 yards. This part we went over. 158. You seen the lawyers in here doing basically the same thing. Let's see if we can catch that again, ladies and gentlemen. So the funny part, on like I said, shout out to Jewel Mancy. 158 right here, ladies and gentlemen. Say, you've seen the lawyers passing notes in this courtroom. Now ask yourself, how long has this game of deception been going on? Like, ooh, let me introduce to you a nothing burger that has nothing burgers on the burger, but nothing. Right? That's basically what's going on, right? And so they come up with this nothing burger and trying to make like it just has everything: lettuce, cheese, pickles, tomatoes, onions. Better yet, not just regular onions, but sauteed onions. You understand what I'm saying? Mushrooms and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? How long has this game of deception been going on? I would say as long as the people who knew they weren't being deceived, let it go on, right or wrong. So yeah, we waiting for the turnaround. Sometimes this display of information be tripping, but we gonna get it, y'all. We got 2 sources, 4 voices. Yeah, but like I said, more importantly, you see what they're trying to do. You can see it right here. How long has this game of deception been going on? Now, you know as well as I know, or should know, if you've seen lawyers, they pass notes in the courtroom. The prosecution side, they might come up with a good question as to when the other lawyers doing the questioning, ask this. You know what I mean? It's not a game of deception. That's strategy. That's a legal strategy, right? But the government would have you think, right, that somehow, some way, this is some kind of, grand scheme with Diddy and the family. You see it right here, ladies and gentlemen. Slavic, finally, venue. We only have a show. We only have to show an act in this district. Doesn't have to be criminal. They say in this district, they only have to show an act. It doesn't have to be criminal. The SDNY includes Manhattan and the Bronx. Count 2, freak-offs in Manhattan. Count 3, freak-offs, jewels, to the London Hotel in Manhattan. Count 4, Jane in Manhattan. So they're laying it out, ladies and gentlemen. They're laying it out, ladies and gentlemen. Boom, the prosecution is coming down with the gauntlet. They're basically saying, and finally, the venue, we only have to show an act in this district. Doesn't have to be criminal. The SDNY includes Manhattan and the Bronx. Count 2, freak-offs in Manhattan. Count 3, freak-offs, jewels to the London Hotel in Manhattan. Count 4, Jane in Manhattan. Prosecution, you spent 7 weeks listening to a lot of evidence. Was hard to hear or see. You heard from Kid Cudi, whose house was broken into, whose car was burned. You heard from Regina Ventura, Deontay Nash, how he ran the enterprise with total control. They're really going with this enterprise thing, y'all. Like Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Right? Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to hold him accountable. You see it right here, ladies and gentlemen. It is time to hold him accountable. It's time to find him guilty. Judge will continue tomorrow. Jurors, don't watch or read anything about the case. All rise. All rise, ladies and gentlemen. The judge kept her ass to an hour. It's time to find him guilty. It's time to hold him accountable. It's time to find him guilty, ladies and gentlemen. We will continue tomorrow with the defense offering what? Their closing arguments, ladies and gentlemen. You see it right here. Let me refresh it for you. Let me refresh it for you. You see it? Hold on. Ladies and gentlemen, huh? Right? You see it? They said he tampered with Mia. Ladies and gentlemen, the judge says, all rise. They're trying to find Sean P. Diddy Combs guilty. Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you when? We will see you with a friend tomorrow. Tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen.
They said Tupac was untouchable, but behind the walls of Rikers Island, he was just a man, wounded, watching his back, and wondering who he could trust. He survived bullets, betrayal, and isolation behind bars. But what happened inside those walls has never been told until now. In the darkest corner of Rikers, he found betrayal and a brotherhood no one saw coming. These dudes smiled in my face, then flipped and tried to kill me, and I never saw it coming. They were Puff's security, Biggie's muscle, Henchman's people, and Tupac knew exactly who sent them. This is the side of Tupac Shakur the world never got to see, told by the man who lived it with him, not in the studio, but in a 6x9 cell. The rap battles, sex and drama with female guards, the tears, the silence after Jada Pinkett's visit, and the moment Tupac almost broke. Before Death Row, before All Eyes on Me, before Machiavelli, there was Rikers. Behind the Walls with Tupac Shakur, available now on Amazon. Get your copy. Learn the truth.
Life is like cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.